Guys, back here with more NCAA tournament content. Hope you're enjoying it. I mean, I can't get enough of the NCAA tournament, and I hope you feel the same. Like we're trying to roll out a bunch of content. We've had previous videos, on some NCAA tournament dark horses. Dalton's supposed to be doing a video on NCAA tournament upsets to watch for in the first round. In particular, we did our full bracket breakdown on Sunday night. That video link is in the description. We also have a Presley Bros Bracket Challenge, and Dalton issued this award for anyone who has subscribed to the channel and is enters our bracket challenge and wins that bracket challenge. Whatever person wins and is subscribed to the channel, they will get $100. Now, if you win and you're not subscribed to the channel, well, then you don't get the $100. You've got to be subscribed and win the bracket challenge. The link to join the Presley Bros bracket challenge is in the description as well. So hope you'll join in with us, have some fun with that. Fill out as many brackets as you can for different groups, guys. I mean, try to fill out as many as you can to win these prizes on these different, websites and stuff like that. But we're gonna do it through ESPN, so you can get have a chance to win $100 from us if you are subscribed and win our bracket challenge. All right, got some bold predictions for the NCAA tournament. Look, I don't really know if there's that many bold predictions for the NCAA tournament just because like crazy things happen every single year without question. So like I'm not really sure if there are that many bold predictions. I mean, I guess like a 16 seed over a one, like Siena over Duke would be a very, very bold prediction. I just don't see that happening. I don't see any 16 seed beating a one seed. Those are ridiculously hard to predict. It's only been two times. But I still have some things here that I think are pretty bold, but absolutely would love to see happen and really could see happen. So I'm predicting some chaos this year. So my first bold prediction is at least one of every double digit seed will win one game in the NCAA tournament, and that excludes the 16 seeds. I just don't, I cannot predict the 16 seed. I think that's winning a game. That's just, incredibly bold, so hard to predict, as I've already said. So what I'm basically saying here is like at least one 10 seed will win a game, at least one 11 seed will win a game, at least one 12, and so on and so forth, all the way up to 15 will win a game. So I don't think it's really that hard to predict, like, a 12 over a five. That happens almost every single year. In fact, in the history of the NCAA tournament, 12 seeds have a pretty good, respectable record against five seeds. So, like, you could see that happen. St. John's, Northern Iowa, although I think St. John's has got that one. That's one 5-12 matchup. The other one is Vandy McNeese. I do like Vandy in that matchup, but McNeese pulled off the shocker last year against Clemson as a 12 seed. You go down to this East region here. I mean, sorry, West region. Excuse me. You've got Wisconsin High Point. I've been seeing people pick High Point, and look, I could see it. Like they're 30-4, and Wisconsin seems to play down to competition at times. So you could see that. But here's the one I really think could happen is the 5-12 here between Akron and Texas Tech. Um, that could absolutely happen. Here's why I'm starting with, the 5-12. I skipped like the 7-10 and 6-11. You know, 10s regularly beat 7s and 11s regularly beat 6s in the NCAA tournament. In fact, I saw something the other day that said like 11s in the last 10 years, 11 seeds have a better record than 6 seeds. So like over 6 seeds, I mean, in those matchups. So like that happens a lot. So it's really like these 12, 13, 14, 15 range that you got to kind of, you know, they're not as likely. I know 12 does happen a lot more, but then you start looking at like the 13s. Okay. So you've got here the 13 seed Alabama and Hofstra. Look, Alabama's without one of their top scorers in Aiden Holloway for his felony drug charge. I mean, just a ridiculous thing to happen here for Alabama. We're huge Alabama fans, but seems like every year Alabama's in some type of controversy, but just ridiculous. Aiden Holloway's going to be out of that game. This was already going to be a tough game, I think. Now it's really going to be tough without him. Hofstra has not lost a game by double digits all season. They've had a couple of power conference wins against Syracuse and Pitt. So, like, that could absolutely happen. You go up to this other region here. You've got Hawaii and Arkansas. I don't see that one happening. Although that, Hawaii upset California several years back in NCAA tournament. And it was probably about this seed line here. Um, but you got in this going up in the bracket, Troy versus Nebraska. I picked that one. Look, Troy, they beat San Diego State this year. They took USC to the brink, lost on a buzzer beater. Troy could absolutely pull that 13-4 matchup off. Nebraska has struggled down the stretch. You look at this 13-4 Cal Baptist. I don't see them beating Kansas. I think Darren Peterson will be too much for them. But look, something could happen here. Like you never know with these 13-4s that those happen. Um, Now you look at the 14-3, these are less likely. I don't see North Dakota State beating Michigan State, but you know what? It could happen. It's happened before. Michigan State lost to a 15 seed, Middle Tennessee State a couple years ago. Keep going down here. I don't see Pennsylvania beating Illinois. It took a miracle for Penn to beat Yale in their conference tournament to get the automatic bid. I don't see them doing that. Illinois is kind of one of my teams. I'm pretty high on. Kennesaw State versus Gonzaga. Look, I worry about Gonzaga. Like they lost to Portland State this year, or Portland, one of the two. They've lost to St. Mary's. They've had some losses that kind of make you scratch your head. In some games, they um, Seattle took them to the wire to OT, and they're without one of their best players and Huff. So like Kennesaw State could pull the upset here. If you're looking for 14-3, that's the one. Okay, that's the one to look out for. And maybe Dalton will talk about that. I don't know in his video. Wright State versus Virginia. I don't know if I see. I'm going to preview. Let's look at Wright State. Wow, the spread is 18.5. That's insane. Um, I was curious, kind of some of Wright State's key wins here. Look, you look at their notable results. Lost to California by 10. That's respectable. Um, Lost to Kent State, who's a solid team. Butler, who got handled by Butler. Yeah, I don't see this one happening. Did hang with Miami, Ohio, who's also in. Um, I think they could hang with Virginia for a little bit. Maybe they could. I'm not high on Virginia, so I could see Wright State competing with them. But I'm just saying these things could happen. Here's where it gets a little tricky is the 15/2. Like this is where it gets to be a big time stretch here to like predict one of these. I tried to go out on a limb and do that a couple years ago after there were like 2 15 seeds and multiple like there was 2 years in a row where a 15 seed won a game. Tennessee State, Iowa State, that's gonna be tough. Queens, Purdue, like, likewise, that's gonna be very tough. Idaho versus Houston. I'm gonna come back to that in just a second. Furman, UConn. Furman has not been the same Furman. We've seen them win some games in the tournament in the past. Not the same team, not as good. But go back to this Idaho team here. Look, Houston has at times shown that they really struggle on offense. So, like, maybe they have one of those games where they just struggle and they come out and, are not hitting. So, Idaho, look at some of their notable results. Notre Dame lost by 15. Not a great team this year, but still an ACC team. You at least were sort of close. Don't have really any other, you know, important wins here. I'm just saying, like, or any notable results. I'm just saying, listen, Houston has struggled at times on offense, and maybe that will happen, and Idaho can pull off the shocker. It's just like going down here, like Queens, like I don't know, man. Like look at these. I had said I picked Queens. I didn't mean to actually select that, but you look at Queens, like I think at times Purdue has struggled this year. Got blasted by Villanova, got absolutely destroyed by Virginia. Wake Forest drilled them. I mean, any power conference team they played a bunch. They got absolutely whooped. I just don't see Queens doing it against Purdue. It's 15 seeds are hard, but look, it's a bold prediction. All right, let's look at Tennessee State here real quick. It's a bold prediction for a reason. Tennessee State. Um, oh yeah, look, you competed with Kentucky, only lost by or Tennessee lost by 29. Look, it's going to be tough to get that 15 seed, but look, it could happen. It's happened before. So that's the bold prediction. At least one of these double digit seed wins in the each of the double digit seeds wins at least one game. Okay, here's another bold prediction. At least one seed doesn't make it to the second weekend. So there's going to be at least one seed that does not make it to the Sweet 16. Sweet 16. Okay. This has happened before. My mind always goes back to that Villanova team that lost to Wisconsin in the second round as like Wisconsin was like an 8 or 9. Look, Duke, I'm predicting Duke and Ohio State. That's a tough matchup. Look, Ohio State took Michigan to the brink the other day in the Big Ten tournament. They got some really good players like Bruce Thornton, who's been there for 10 years, as Dalton likes to say. So Ohio State could do it. Um, Florida, Iowa. This is the one I really want. I was tempted to pick. I picked Florida, Iowa. Um, I'm tempted to go with this. Look, Iowa's got Bennett Sturts, who's an NBA caliber player, absolute stud. Got a really good coach. They've got some other, solid pieces on that team, but Bennett Sturts is really what makes the team go. And like, you got to watch out for him. They took down Nebraska. They took Michigan down to the wire as well. Got to watch out for Iowa over Florida. And Florida has shown at times this year to struggle. Like, yes, they've been on a hot streak towards the end of the season. They got obliterated by, or not obliterated, we got handled by Vandy in the SEC tournament, got beat by Auburn at home, got beat by Missouri, beat by TCU. So, like, Iowa could do that. Um, I don't see Villanova or Utah State competing with Arizona. I'm not even going to entertain that. And I don't see Georgia or St. Louis really, you know, giving Michigan any trouble. The only thing I could see is if Georgia somehow just went off like they did against Alabama a couple weeks ago, we're just dropping threes. They could maybe give some Michigan some fits, but I don't see it. I really think it's the Florida Iowa matchup. That's the one I would look at and say Florida's not going to make it to the Sweet 16. But that's my bold prediction. At least one seed does not make it to the Sweet 16. And maybe, look, anything can happen. Maybe it's multiple one seeds. Maybe it is Duke and Ohio State here. Look, Ohio State could do it. They lost to North Carolina earlier in the season by like 1 point. They had the lead late in that game. Like they could do it against Duke. It'd be a shocker, but hey, that's why it's a bold prediction. I'm predicting at least one of those one seeds to not make it Sweet 16. All right. And here's the last one, last bold prediction here. I'm going to say at least one conference champion winner underperforms in the NCAA tournament. Okay. And what I mean by underperforming would be like you don't make it to the second weekend. So we're talking about like for the ACC, we're talking about Duke. Okay. We're talking about from the Big East, St. John's here, um, right here as a 5 seed, which I believe is sorely underseeded. From the Big East, they won their conference championship. From the Big Ten, you're talking about Purdue, Purdue who won their conference. They're down here, right here against Queens. We got to kind of look at that. And for the Big 12, you're talking about Arizona. I don't see Arizona not making it to the second weekend, especially they got something to prove this year, falling short a lot. But they did win the Big 12. I don't see them underperforming. And then you've got the SEC champs, Arkansas. And look, for some reason this happens. These teams who like make it, they win their conference championship. There's been times where you get into the tournament, you think, okay, they're on a hot streak. They won their tournament. They should theoretically do really good in the NCAA tournament. And then they come out and they flop in the NCAA tournament, like losing in the first round or losing, in an earlier round than you'd expect them to do. That's um happened in the past. It's kind of shocking. I don't know if it's like the momentum kind of has died out over a week or like you get a little too confident or something like that and you look over a team. I don't know, but I'm going to predict at least one of these major conference champion winners doesn't make it to the second weekend. Okay. And if I had to pick, I think I would go um, Arkansas or Purdue. Okay, that's kind of who I would go with here. So if you look at Arkansas, like I just scrolled away from them, but like Arkansas's got a tough matchup potentially in the second round with Wisconsin. Okay, like they could easily lose that game, and I could see them kind of overlooking Hawaii, even overlooking Wisconsin, and thinking, look, we just won the SEC, we got one of the best players in the country, but I could see them slipping up. So watch out for them. And then Purdue, like all year, they've been up and down. They've shown games where they've been really good. They've shown games they've been really bad. And you got a potential matchup with Missouri or Miami. And look, neither of those teams I don't think really scare you that much, but they could pull off the shocker. Missouri beat Florida and beat Kentucky in back-to-back games this year. Miami's had a solid win against North Carolina and Louisville. So like these teams could shock Purdue. All right. So I'm gonna predict one of these major conference winners does not make it to the Sweet 16. Let me know if you've got any bold predictions. There's some more we could probably throw out there, but those are the ones that I wanted to kind of talk about here today. Let me know your bold predictions in the comments. Man, I'm just looking forward to the NCAA tournament. Thanks so much for tuning.